Jenna smoothed out the hem of her navy blue uniform and took a steadying breath, preparing herself for another transcontinental flight from New York to Los Angeles. Being a flight attendant had its share of long hours, jet lag, and stiff smiles, but after nearly a decade, Jenna had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the skies. She enjoyed her job, the small human moments, the camaraderie with the crew, the quiet satisfaction of helping people feel comfortable in a cramped metal tube miles above the earth. But today felt off. There was a subtle tension humming beneath her skin, a restlessness she couldn't shake. Maybe it was the weariness of back-to-back flights, or maybe it was just that feeling, the one she sometimes got when she was too far from home, from Chicago, from her 7-year-old daughter Lily. Jenna had learned to tune those feelings out, to focus on the task at hand. But today they clung to her like static. The plane had taken off smoothly. Jenna moved up and down the aisles with practiced ease, offering warm smiles, handing out drinks, gently guiding passengers back into their seats when the seatbelt sign flickered on. First class was unusually cheerful today. Clinking glasses, soft jazz playing from someone's earbuds, and then a laugh. Not just any laugh, but a deep, rich, familiar laugh that stopped Jenna cold. She turned her head toward the sound. And there, in 3A, sat a man with his head tilted back, laughing as if the world had never broken him. Her heart lurched. The cup of orange juice in her hand nearly tipped as her fingers trembled. Well, it couldn't be. But it was. The man in seat 3A looked exactly like Caleb. Caleb, her husband. Caleb, who had died in a fiery car crash 5 years ago on a rainy Wisconsin highway. Caleb, whose funeral she had attended, clutching Lily's tiny hand with knuckles white from grief. He was alive. Or this man was his twin. He looked older, maybe a little more polished. His hair swept back, a crisp button-down shirt, a watch that gleamed in the dim cabin light. And next to him, a woman, glamorous, graceful, laughed softly at something he said, her fingers brushing his arm. Jenna felt like the oxygen had been vacuumed out of the plane. She blinked, then again, hoping the illusion would fade. But the image stayed. Caleb, or whoever he was, smiling that same charming, crooked smile. His profile bathed in the glow of the reading light. Her stomach twisted. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. It had to be a coincidence. Cruel one. A passenger who just happened to resemble a man she had loved deeply, mourned entirely. But even as she tried to convince herself, her gut whispered otherwise. Jenna turned away, nearly stumbling as she made her way to the galley, setting the tray down with a shaky hand. She leaned against the wall, trying to calm the thunder in her chest. Oh. Caleb's car had flipped over a guardrail. They never recovered his body, but everyone had assumed he was dead. The state troopers had been clear. The car had burst into flames, and the river nearby had likely carried the rest away. She had grieved. She had rebuilt her life. Lily had only been 2. Jenna had carried the weight of both parents for 5 long years, figuring out how to show up, how to stay steady, how to smile through birthdays and scraped knees. And now he was sitting 12 feet from her, laughing like he hadn't torn her world apart. She clenched her hands into fists to stop the trembling. This couldn't unravel her. Not here, not midair. She forced herself to stand up straight, brushed imaginary lint from her skirt, and plastered on the practiced smile of someone who didn't just see a ghost in first class. As she moved past 3A again, she dared a second glance. And this time he looked up. Their eyes locked. Her heart skipped. But there was no flicker of recognition in his gaze. No hint of emotion. Nothing. Just cool detachment. The disinterest of a stranger acknowledging another stranger in a uniform. It was like being punched in the chest. Jenna's feet kept moving, her body operating on autopilot even as her mind reeled. She found herself in the back again, near the crew seats, staring blankly at the coffee machine. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away. Colleague noticed. "You okay, Jen?" she asked, concern coloring her voice. Jenna nodded weakly. "Just tired," she murmured. "Didn't sleep much last night." The rest of the flight dragged on like a fever dream. Every time she passed the man in 3A, she fought the urge to look. She didn't trust herself to see him again. Didn't trust what it might unravel inside her. Was it him? Could it be? When the plane began its descent into Los Angeles, Jenna's heart pounded like a drum. She gripped the jump seat during landing, trying to slow her racing thoughts. When they touched down, she stood near the exit, watching as passengers filed off the plane. He passed her, arm gently placed around the woman's waist. He didn't look at her. Not even a glance. Not a twitch. Not a pause. It was as if she didn't exist. Jenna stood rooted to the floor, her chest hollowed out. If that was Caleb, if it really was him, then everything, every birthday missed, every tear shed, every lie she told Lily about her dad watching over her, was a sham. And if it wasn't, then why did it feel like she had just lost him all over again? The terminal was a blur. People rushing to connections. Families reuniting. Jenna moved through it like a ghost, her bag clenched tight in her hand, her breath shallow. Then her phone buzzed. A photo from Lily's sitter. Her daughter curled up on the couch, her favorite book in hand, fast asleep. Jenna smiled, but it cracked at the edges. Lily had been her anchor. Her reason for holding it all together. She'd taught herself to be both mother and father. She'd worked overnights, missed holidays, taken red-eye flights just to be home for kindergarten plays. And now what? Was it all built on a lie? She changed out of her uniform in the crew room, checked her next flight, but knew she couldn't wait. She needed air. Answers. Outside, the air hit her like a slap. Cool, dry, grounding. She tried to center herself. Then another buzz. Unknown number. I saw you looking at me on the plane. We need to talk. Her pulse surged. She stared at the message, then typed and deleted a reply. She didn't know what she felt. Rage. Terror. Hope. The airport lights swam in her vision as she clutched her phone, lost in the weight of it all. Then someone called her name. Jenna. He turned. It was Mason. Tall, suit jacket slung over one shoulder, that familiar crooked smile easing into his features. She knew him vaguely. Frequent flyer, good tipper, always polite. He had been on her flight. I was hoping I'd catch you, he said. You looked a little off earlier. Everything okay? She opened her mouth, closed it. Well, nothing was okay. But Mason's presence felt solid. Grounding. You busy? He asked. I've got a rental. Want a ride to wherever you're going? Jenna hesitated. She didn't know him well. But the idea of sitting alone with her thoughts for another minute felt unbearable. Yeah, she said. Actually, that'd be great. They walked toward the garage. Mason talked about work, something in logistics. He cracked a joke about client meetings turning into therapy sessions. Jenna laughed. Felt strange. Human. Normal. Inside the car, Mason glanced at her as he drove. You sure you're okay? She bit her lip. I saw someone on the flight, she said finally. Someone who looked exactly like my husband. Mason didn't interrupt. He died 5 years ago, she continued. At least. That's what I thought. The words hung heavy. He nodded slowly. That must have been a lot to process. It was more than just a resemblance, she said quietly. It felt like him. But he looked at me like he didn't know me. Like I was nobody. They drove in silence for a moment. Mason spoke softly. I don't know what it means. But maybe it's worth finding out. You deserve answers. Jenna stared out the window, city lights flashing by. Maybe, she whispered. Maybe I just want my life to go back to the way it was. Mason didn't press. He just drove, hands steady on the wheel. I know what it's like to lose someone, he said after a pause. And to carry questions that eat away at you. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. Jenna turned to him, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. Why are you being so nice to me? She asked. Because I get it, he said. More than you know. Jenna sat alone in the airport coffee shop. hands wrapped around a lukewarm latte she hadn't touched. Her phone sat on the table like a landmine, the message still glowing on the screen. "I saw you looking at me on the plane. We need to talk." She had read it 10 times. Deleted a reply 3 times. Her fingers hovered again now, unsure if she wanted to ask, "Who are you?" or just type, "Leave me alone." Her heart was still hammering from seeing that face. Caleb's face, and now this. "Ghosts don't text," she muttered under her breath. She locked the screen and shoved the phone into her bag like it had insulted her. Her shift was over, but she couldn't bring herself to leave just yet. The terminal around her buzzed with energy. Travelers dragging luggage, airport announcements droning on, laughter echoing from a nearby gate. But Jenna felt disconnected from it all, suspended in a fog. She pulled out her ID badge and stared at it. Jenna Carter, flight attendant. The photo was 2 years old. She looked tired even back then. She used to joke that altitude aged you faster, but lately she wasn't laughing. Her phone buzzed again. He jumped. New message. This time from Mason. "You okay? Still around? I'm grabbing a late dinner if you want company." Jenna hesitated, then typed, "I'm still here. Where are you headed?" The response came quickly. "Same airport diner near gate 12. Booth by the window. Come join." She didn't want to be alone. Not tonight. Not with questions clawing at her. She tucked her badge back in, grabbed her bag, and made her way toward the diner. It was a greasy spoon kind of place with red vinyl booths and waitresses who looked like they'd seen it all. Mason waved when he saw her. "You made it," he said, standing as she approached. "Yeah," she replied, slipping into the seat across from him. "Figured I'd eat my feelings." He grinned. "Menu's got 4 things that'll help with that. None of them good for your cholesterol." They ordered grilled cheese for her, a burger for him, and for a few minutes, Jenna let herself enjoy the mindless conversation. Mason was easy to talk to. Something about him felt safe, unthreatening. Like a childhood friend you didn't know you needed. But the weight of the day lingered. When the food came, Jenna pushed her fries around with a fork. "I got a message," she said suddenly. "From him." Mason paused mid-bite. "The guy from the plane." She nodded. "Said he saw me looking at him. Wants to talk." He set his burger down carefully. "Did you respond?" "No. Couldn't. I didn't know what to say." Mason leaned back in the booth, studying her. "You're sure it was him?" Jenna swallowed hard. "I don't know what I'm sure about anymore. I went to his funeral, Mason. Said goodbye. But today, I looked into his eyes and felt like my world cracked open." Mason didn't offer false comfort. He just listened. "He didn't even recognize me," she added. "Just looked right through me. Like I was invisible." "Maybe he didn't," Mason said gently. "Or maybe he was pretending. Either way, something's not right." "Yeah," Jenna whispered. "That's an understatement." She looked out the window, watching a baggage cart rumble by. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, messy hair, confusion written all over her face. "He was gone," she said. "Dead. At least that's what I believed. And now I don't know what's worse, thinking I imagined it, or realizing he might have been alive this whole time and chose not to come back." Mason reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. She didn't pull away. "You're not crazy," he said. "You're going through something nobody's prepared for. And whatever this is, you don't have to face it alone." Jenna blinked away, the emotion threatening to spill. "I'm used to facing things alone." "You don't have to be," he replied, his voice low. "Not anymore." She exhaled, slow and shaky, and let herself feel the comfort of his hand on hers. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was something solid to hold on to. They finished dinner without mentioning Caleb again. Mason told a story about a flight delay in Atlanta that turned into an accidental stand-up routine, complete with a guy trying to juggle oranges. Jenna laughed, really laughed, and felt a little lighter. Afterward, he walked her to the terminal exit. "Need a ride?" he offered. I've got a hotel nearby, she said. Airport shuttle should be here soon. He nodded. Well, if you change your mind or want to talk, I'm just a text away. Thanks, Mason, she said, smiling. Really? As he turned to go, she called out, Hey! He looked back. Why are you being so nice to me? He shrugged. Because I think you need someone to be. And because I know what it's like to lose someone. Jenna stood there a moment after he left, the chill of the night pressing in through the terminal glass. She pulled out her phone. One unread message still waited from the unknown number. This time she opened it. It was just a name. Ethan. Followed by, I know you think I'm dead. I'll explain everything. Please. Jenna's breath caught. Ethan. Her husband's middle name. The name he only used with business clients and on official documents. The name she hadn't spoken in 5 years. She stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then slowly she typed, Where? The message blinked on the screen like a dare. Jenna sat frozen in the hotel lobby, clutching her phone as if it might explode. Ethan. I know you think I'm dead. I'll explain everything. Please. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. For a moment she typed, then deleted. Where? That's all she sent. Seconds later. Hotel Bellcrest. Room 802. Tonight. She stared at the words, her mouth suddenly dry. The Bellcrest wasn't far. It was practically around the corner from her own layover hotel. Standard place for crews, business travelers, red-eye refugees. She had walked past it hundreds of times. Never thought it would be the setting for something like this. She reread the message twice before tucking her phone into her coat pocket. Her legs carried her outside without conscious thought. The night air was cool, just enough to sting her cheeks. Planes roared overhead. The city lights flickered like tiny pulses against the dark sky. She wandered, aimlessly at first, past the parking structure, the shuttle drop-off, past baggage claim. Her boots echoed on the sidewalk. It felt like walking underwater, like her body was moving but her mind hadn't caught up. She stopped near a bench and finally pulled her phone out again. Her thumb hovered, trembling slightly. Then she typed, Mason, are you around? The reply came almost instantly. Still nearby. What's going on? Can we talk? 15 minutes later, she was sitting inside Mason's car again. Same warm, familiar scent, same quiet, steady presence behind the wheel. He didn't say anything at first. Just handed her a cup of hot coffee from a drive-thru and waited. I messaged him, Jenna said quietly. Mason didn't flinch. And? He replied. Wants to meet. Tonight. At the Bellcrest. Mason nodded slowly. Do you want to go? I don't know, she whispered. It feels wrong. Like I'd be opening a door I spent years trying to bolt shut. He took a sip of his own coffee and watched her carefully. I don't want to pressure you either way, he said. But I think you already know you're not ready. She let out a slow breath. I thought I was. But then he used his name, Ethan. And I hadn't heard it in so long. It felt like someone slammed the past right into my chest. Mason's gaze was gentle. Is that what he went by with you? No, she said. Not to me. He was always just Caleb. Ethan was the name on legal forms. Work emails. He never used it with me. Never with Lily. Her voice cracked slightly at the mention of her daughter. Mason reached over and rested his hand on hers. I'm sorry. Jenna shook her head. I'm just confused. And angry. And so tired of feeling like I don't know what's real. They sat in silence for a while, the hum of passing cars filling the air. Did you love him? Mason asked gently. She blinked. Yeah, I did. So much. We met when I was still in school. I was broke, juggling part-time jobs and trying to finish my degree. He showed up one day at the bookstore I worked at. Bought 2 copies of the same poetry collection and said one was for future conversations. She smiled faintly. He was clever. Charming. Always had a way with words. What happened? Mason asked, not prying but listening. He started traveling a lot for work, she said. Finance, investments, he said it was boring stuff. Sometimes he'd be gone for a week. Other times a month. But he always came back. Always brought Lily a book or a stuffed animal. And then? Mason asked quietly. Then one day he didn't come back. Her voice faltered. They said he crashed off a wet highway outside Green Bay. That the car exploded and they couldn't find much. I had to explain to a 2-year-old that her daddy wasn't coming home again. Mason's jaw tightened. You didn't deserve that. No one does. He paused. I grieved him. I blamed myself for not noticing something was wrong. I wore black for a year. I slept with his sweatshirt for 2. And then, when Lily got old enough to ask where he was, I made up stories about angels. She turned toward Mason, her voice trembling. So now tell me, how the hell do I go to room 802 and look him in the eye? You don't, Mason said gently. Not until you're ready. Not until you've got your questions lined up like bullets. Jenna laughed dryly. I don't want revenge. I know, he said. But you deserve answers. She looked down at her lap, where her hands were knotted together. I don't even know what I'd say if I saw him. Probably just stand there. Or cry. Or slap him. Whatever you choose to do, Mason said. Make sure it's for you. Not him. She nodded slowly. Then she pulled out her phone again and typed, Not tonight. And after a pause, I'll let you know when I'm ready. That night sleep came in pieces. Jenna sat at the small desk in her hotel room, flipping through a photo album on her phone. Old pictures of Lily as a toddler. Ethan at the park, tossing her up in the air. A blurry photo of the 3 of them, smiling on the couch with popcorn in their laps. She closed the gallery quickly and pressed the phone to her chest. Outside, the city was silent. Inside, she couldn't quiet her mind. When she finally fell asleep, her dreams were disjointed. She was walking down a hallway lined with doors, each one bearing a name she didn't recognize. At the end of the corridor was room 802, glowing gold. She reached for the handle, but it burned her skin. She woke with a jolt. The hotel room was still. Her phone buzzed beside her pillow. Message. Not from Ethan. From Mason. Thinking about you. Let me know if you need anything. She smiled faintly. Just a little. The next morning there was a knock on her door. Jenna paused at the mirror, still in her robe, hair tied up, eyes tired. She crossed to the door and peered through the peephole. Nobody there. She opened it slowly. A small envelope had been slipped under the door. No label. No name. Inside, a handwritten note. I won't bother you again unless you want me to. But please let me explain. For your sake. For Lily's. E. Jenna stared at the message. He knew about Lily. She sat down on the bed and held the note between trembling fingers. This wasn't just about her anymore. Jenna sat on the edge of her hotel bed, still holding the note. For Lily's sake. That one line kept echoing in her mind. Not because it was touching, but because it was calculated. Ethan knew the one name that would break her. And he used it. He was watching. Somehow, somewhere he'd kept track. She folded the note carefully, placed it inside her wallet, and zipped it shut. It felt safer behind a layer of leather. Out of sight but far from out of mind. The sun filtered through the sheer curtains now. Morning had crept in without her realizing. She hadn't slept much, just drifted in and out, haunted by questions she wasn't ready to answer. Her phone buzzed. Mason. How are you doing? Jenna hesitated. Then typed. Confused. Tired. Kinda angry. Then quickly followed up with, Thanks for checking on me. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then nothing. She tried to go through the motions. Took a shower. Made coffee. Scrolled through emails she had no intention of replying to. But everything felt flat. Background noise behind a storm in her chest. Eventually, she walked to the park a few blocks from the hotel. It was small, nothing fancy. Just a playground, a few benches, some trees that hadn't quite bloomed yet. There were a couple of families nearby, kids chasing each other, their laughter rising into the spring air. She sat on a bench and pulled out her phone again. She opened the photo gallery and scrolled back, past beach selfies, birthdays, pancakes shaped like hearts, until she reached a video from when Lily was 3. Ethan was filming. You could hear his voice behind the camera, low and warm. "Okay, Lily, what sound does a cow make?" "Moo." "And what sound does Daddy make when he's hungry?" The toddler giggled, then let out an exaggerated growl, both hands clutching her belly. "Perfect," Ethan said, laughing. "You nailed it." She closed the video. For a long time she just sat there, elbows on her knees, her eyes fixed on nothing. Then she heard someone approaching. She didn't need to look up. She recognized the steps. "Hey," Mason said gently. Jenna shifted slightly but didn't speak right away. "I brought coffee," he added, holding out a cup like a peace offering. "Thought you might need something warm." She took it, their fingers brushing for a second. "Thanks," she said. "You always show up with coffee. It's the only language I speak fluently." She smiled faintly, then took a sip. "I wasn't sure if I should come," he admitted, sitting down next to her. "I'm glad you did." They sat in silence for a while, watching a boy chase a soccer ball across the grass. "I got another note this morning," Jenna said finally. Mason turned to her. "From him." She nodded. "He left it outside my door. Said he won't bother me again unless I reach out. And he mentioned Lily," she said quietly. "Said he wanted to talk for her sake." Mason's expression shifted. "He knows about her." "He used her name," Jenna replied. "Not your daughter. Not the kid. Her name." Mason leaned back, exhaling slowly. "So he's been watching," he said. "Keeping tabs." Jenna nodded. "I don't know how long. Or how. But yeah, he knows things. That terrifies me more than seeing his face again." "You don't have to see him," Mason said. "Not if you feel unsafe." "It's not that I feel unsafe," Jenna said slowly. "It's that I feel invaded. Like my grief, my healing, it wasn't mine. He's been in the background this whole time, watching me try to move on while pretending he doesn't exist." Mason's hands tightened around his cup. "That's not okay." "No, it's not." She glanced at him. "But part of me still wants to know. Why he left. Why he didn't come back. Why now?" Mason didn't say anything right away. Just nodded. "Then maybe it's time you set the terms," he said. "Not him. You decide the place. Time. You control the conversation. And if I'm not ready, then wait," Mason said. "But don't let him pull the strings. Not again." Later that afternoon, Jenna returned to her hotel. She sat at the desk, staring at a blank notebook. She hadn't written in months, not since her last therapy session ended. She grabbed a pen and began to write. Not a letter to Ethan, not even a message to herself, but a list. "Things I want to know. Why didn't you come back? Did you fake the crash? Was it always the plan? How long have you been watching? What do you want from me now?" He paused, then added, "Do you love her? Do you still love me?" She stared at the last question for a long time before underlining it twice. That evening, Mason texted her again. "Dinner. Doesn't have to be serious. Just food." She hesitated, then typed, "Okay. Something easy. Burger and fries. Deal." They met at a local diner, one of those places that hadn't changed its wallpaper since the 80s. Mason slid into the booth with 2 milkshakes and a grin. "Figured you could use sugar. I look that bad?" "No. You look like someone who's been carrying too much alone." She didn't respond, just sipped the shake. It tasted like vanilla and something simpler than the chaos in her head. They talked about everything but Ethan. Mason told her a ridiculous story about getting stuck in an elevator with a parrot. She laughed so hard she choked on a fry. "Okay," she gasped, wiping her eyes. You're either a liar or the luckiest storyteller I've ever met. I prefer accidentally interesting. Their laughter faded into a soft calm. Then Mason's tone shifted. I meant what I said earlier. About sugar. No. About you not being alone. She looked at him. I don't want you to feel like you have to carry this by yourself. I'm used to carrying things, she said. It's kind of my default setting. I know, he replied. But I'm here. Even if all you want is someone to sit next to you in silence. Jenna felt her throat tighten. Why are you being so kind to me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because you're worth being kind to. When she got back to her hotel, she stood in front of the mirror again. The reflection looking back was still tired, still uncertain, but steadier. Grounded. She picked up her phone and opened her messages. She hovered over Ethan's name. Then typed, if I agree to meet, it's on my terms. Public place. No surprises. No games. The reply came moments later. Whatever you need. Just say where. The cafe she chose was quiet, tucked inside a bookstore near the city's edge. It wasn't fancy or trendy. Just quiet. Familiar. Neutral. That was important. Jenna arrived 20 minutes early, partly to control the setting, partly because her nerves wouldn't let her stay still. She picked the table farthest from the door but within view of it, next to a window, her back to the wall. She ordered tea. She didn't even like tea. She just needed something to hold. Outside, the world moved like nothing had changed. People strolled by with headphones in. Parents pushed strollers. A street musician played something slow and bluesy a few feet away. It should have comforted her. Didn't. Her hands trembled around the ceramic cup. At exactly 5 p.m., the cafe door opened. He stepped in. Ethan. 5 years. And still, she knew it was him in half a heartbeat. He scanned the cafe once. His eyes locked on hers. No surprise. No hesitation. Just quiet recognition. He walked toward her. Same height. Same posture. A little thinner. His hair was darker, shorter than she remembered. No ring. He wore a navy jacket, gray shirt. Nothing flashy. Just a normal. Like he hadn't vanished off the face of the earth and left her in pieces. Hi, he said, stopping at her table. Sit, Jenna replied flatly. He did. They stared at each other for a moment, a silence stretching between them like fabric pulled too tight. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said finally. I wasn't sure either. I'm glad you did. She didn't respond. A barista passed by, and Ethan waved her off. I'm good, he said. Thanks. More silence. Jenna finally leaned forward, folding her arms on the table. I want answers, she said. That's the only reason I'm here. You don't get to make this about anything else. Ethan nodded. Okay. She reached into her bag and pulled out the small notebook she'd scribbled in the night before. She unfolded the page and placed it between them. I wrote them down, she said. So I wouldn't forget. So I wouldn't let you steer the conversation. He blinked, visibly taken aback. Fair. She didn't look at him. Just read the first question aloud. Did you fake your death? Ethan took a breath. Yes. Her jaw tightened. Not in the way it sounds, though. I didn't crash a car on purpose or stage a body. The crash happened. I was driving fast. I was angry. I hit the guardrail and went off the road. But you lived, she said. I swam out. Crawled up the riverbank. My phone was destroyed. I had a concussion. I passed out in the woods. Someone found me 2 days later. A guy living off-grid, no questions asked. He didn't call it in. Just helped me recover. You could have called, she snapped. You could have come back. You had a daughter. I know, he said. But by the time I could think clearly, I wasn't sure I was ready to come back to anything. You let us think you were dead, she said, her voice sharp with betrayal. Do you know what that did to me? To Lily? Yes, he whispered. And I regret it every day. She moved to the second question. Was it always the plan? No, he said quickly. I swear. I didn't plan to disappear. But once it happened, I started thinking maybe it was a chance to escape everything I'd messed up. She raised an eyebrow. What exactly were you running from? Ethan looked down, fiddled with the paper sleeve around the sugar packet. I wasn't just doing finance work, he said. I got involved with people I shouldn't have. Bad deals. Money I was moving that I didn't fully understand. Started small. Just shortcuts. Then it turned into something else. When I realized who I was dealing with, it was too late. And so you ran, Jenna said coldly. I thought I was protecting you, he said. I thought if I stayed gone they wouldn't look at you. Or Lily. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been telling me, she snapped. You don't get to make that decision for both of us. Ethan didn't argue. She went down the list. How long have you been watching us? His face turned pale. Since about a year after, he said. I didn't want to. I tried to stay away. But I couldn't. I needed to know you were okay. Did you ever see her? Jenna asked. In person? Yes. The admission hurt more than she expected. I saw her at a school event. Just once. She was wearing a red dress. Her hair was in braids. You were holding her hand. Jenna remembered that day. Lily had sung in a spring concert and refused to go on stage without her pink sunglasses. Jenna had been exhausted but proud. You could have approached us, she said. I didn't want to scare you, he said. Or mess up your life again. Jenna shook her head slowly. You already had. He opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand. I'm not finished. She flipped to the last two questions. Her voice trembled slightly. Are you with someone now? Ethan hesitated. I was, he said. It ended a few months ago. Was she with you on the plane? He nodded. Jenna pressed her lips together. Last question, she said, voice quieter now. Do you still love me? Ethan's eyes met hers, and for a moment, he looked like a man stripped of armor. I never stopped. Should have meant something. Didn't. She leaned back, feeling like she'd run a marathon without moving. I don't know what you expected from this, she said. A hug. Second chance. Forgiveness. No, Ethan said. Just the truth. Well, here's mine, Jenna said. I loved you. I mourned you. I rebuilt my life without you. And now that you're here, I don't know what you are to me. But you're not the man I married. Ethan nodded slowly. I understand. He stood. Don't contact Lily, she said. Not yet. If I ever think she's ready, I'll let you know. But for now, she still thinks you're a memory. And maybe that's better than who you really are. Ethan stood too. I'll respect that. Jenna turned, started walking toward the exit. Then paused. One more thing. He looked up. If you ever cared about me or her at all, don't show up again without being invited. Ethan didn't argue. Left. Outside, the air felt sharp. Clean. Jenna walked 2 blocks before she realized her hands were shaking. She ducked into a nearby alley, leaned against the wall, and let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding for 5 years. Her phone buzzed. Mason. You okay? She stared at the screen, then typed. I saw him. It's done. The days after Jenna's meeting with Ethan passed like smoke. Thin, unreal, and gone before she could hold on to anything solid. She went back to work. Flights came and went. Passengers smiled, complained, asked for more peanuts. She moved through it all with practiced grace, like an actress on stage repeating her lines. But behind every polite nod and calm announcement, her thoughts churned. She had seen him, spoken to him, demanded answers and gotten most of them. And yet, instead of clarity, there was only more space, wide and echoing, inside her chest. When her layover landed her in Chicago again 3 days later, she didn't go straight home. Instead, she took the train 2 stops past her usual exit and walked the familiar 3 blocks to a quiet brownstone lined with ivy. She stopped outside and stared at the windows. Lily was in there. her daughter, her world. And for the first time in a long time, Jenna wasn't sure how to walk through the door. She stayed on the sidewalk until her phone buzzed. Mason. I made lasagna. Overestimated the appetite of one human. You in? She stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed, I'm outside Lily's. I need a minute. Then, do you want me to come? Jenna hesitated. Then typed, no, but thank you. She slipped the phone back into her coat pocket and finally climbed the stairs. Inside, Lily greeted her like always, with a shriek of "Mom!" and a sprint that ended in a full-body hug. Jenna held on longer than usual. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep mid-sentence during a story about a girl who turned into a bird, Jenna stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. Peaceful. Unaware. Ethan's face flashed in her mind. Haunted, apologetic, still so familiar it made her ache. But that ache was dull now, worn at the edges. Easier to live with. She tiptoed to the living room, curled up under a blanket, and called Mason. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, he said softly. Hey, how's Lily? She's okay, Jenna said. Told me the plot of a book she hasn't finished reading yet. Invented half of it. Sounds like my kind of kid. Jenna smiled faintly. I needed tonight. I figured. I meant what I said, Mason added. You don't have to do any of this alone. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his voice settle something in her chest. I believe you, she said. The next morning, Jenna took Lily to school. The wind was sharp, and Lily refused to wear her gloves. Jenna tucked them into her backpack anyway. At the gate, Lily hugged her tight, then skipped off toward her friends. Jenna lingered, watching. Then she heard a voice beside her. You look like someone making a decision. A turn. Mason stood there, holding a coffee in each hand. I passed a café. Figured you didn't sleep. Jenna took the cup with a soft smile. You're good at showing up. I try. They walked to a nearby bench and sat. The air was brisk, but the sun was warm enough to make it bearable. I think I'm done, Jenna said after a moment. With Ethan. She nodded. I met him. Asked the questions. He gave me answers. But none of it brought back what I thought I'd find. Mason watched her carefully. I spent 5 years building something for me and Lily, she continued. And maybe it was messy, maybe it was hard, but it was ours. And I won't let him take that apart. Mason exhaled, quiet and steady. Then that's the truth you move forward with. She sipped her coffee. It doesn't feel as clean as I thought it would. I thought confronting him would bring closure. And it didn't. No, she said. But it gave me space. I don't feel stuck anymore. They sat in silence for a while, the kind that wasn't heavy or awkward, just real. Then Mason turned toward her. I meant to ask. What do you want now? Not about Ethan. About you. Jenna blinked. I don't know, she said honestly. I've been in survival mode for so long I forgot to ask myself that. Mason gave a small nod. You don't have to answer right now. But maybe, start letting yourself wonder. That weekend, Jenna and Lily went to the lake. It was still too cold to swim, but they walked along the edge, tossing rocks into the waves. Lily brought a sandwich for the ducks. Jenna watched her daughter squeal with delight as feathers flapped and crumbs scattered. For the first time in a long time, Jenna wasn't looking backward. She wasn't waiting for answers. She wasn't afraid. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Jenna pulled out her journal again. She flipped past the pages of questions she'd asked Ethan and started a new list. Things I want for myself. Laugh without guilt, sleep through the night, travel somewhere just for fun, let someone in, teach Lily how to ride a bike without crying. She stared at that last one, then chuckled quietly. She was making room. Finally. The following week, she bumped into Mason at the grocery store. He was squinting at 2 brands of cereal, muttering under his breath. She leaned over. They both taste like sugar and regret. He looked up, grinned. That's why I'm frozen. I want the regret, but I don't want to pay $5 for it. They laughed. He followed her around the store after that. They made fun of pasta names, debated cookie brands, shared a cart. When they reached checkout, Jenna turned to him. Dinner. He blinked. Tonight. If you're free. I'm always free for you. They cooked together in her kitchen. Mason burned the garlic. Jenna pretended not to notice. Lily played music and danced between them. Felt unforced. Warm. After dinner, when Lily had gone to her room to read, Mason helped dry the dishes. Jenna passed him a towel. You're getting better at this. I burned one thing. And tried to save it with soy sauce. I panicked. They smiled at each other across the sink. Then the air shifted. Softer now. More fragile. I'm not asking for anything, Mason said. Not tonight. Not even tomorrow. I just want to be here, wherever that means. Jenna stepped closer. I know. She leaned in. Pressed her forehead lightly to his. For once, she didn't feel like she was betraying the past. Later that night, after Mason had left and Lily had fallen asleep with a book across her face, Jenna stepped out onto the balcony. The sky was clear, the air sharp. She took a deep breath. Then she took out her phone. One last message to Ethan. Don't contact us again. Please. I got what I needed. I hope someday you find what you're looking for too. But Lily's life is hers now. And mine is mine. She hit send. Then she turned off notifications. She stood under the stars for a while, letting the silence wrap around her. Not the end of a chapter. The beginning of one. The morning sunlight slipped through the blinds, painting soft stripes across the bedroom floor where Jenna lay awake. Lily's small hand was curled against her side. Her breath steady and even in sleep. Jenna watched her daughter for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened still lingering, but lighter somehow. Not gone but more manageable. She reached over and gently brushed a stray curl from Lily's forehead. Her heart swelled with a quiet resolve. Today felt different. After breakfast, Jenna and Lily headed to the park nearby. A crisp, clear day with hints of spring in the air. Lily chased after pigeons, squealing with delight as they scattered in every direction. Jenna leaned back on a bench, pulling her jacket tighter around her. Mason arrived moments later, carrying 2 coffees and a thermos. Morning, he said with a smile. Morning, Jenna replied. I was just thinking about how much easier mornings are with coffee and company. Mason handed her a cup. I'll take credit for both. They watched Lily together, who was now trying to climb the tallest slide despite Jenna's gentle protests. She's fearless, Mason remarked. Definitely inherited that from someone, Jenna said, smiling. As the day unfolded, their conversation drifted naturally, from plans for summer vacations to silly stories from Mason's childhood. At one point, Mason looked at Jenna with a seriousness that caught her off guard. I want to ask you something, he said. But no pressure. Okay, she said, curious. Do you see a future for us? I mean, beyond this. Jenna took a slow breath. It was a question she hadn't dared ask herself outright until now. I don't know, she admitted. I want to believe it's possible. That after everything, I can still have something real. Something good. Mason reached over, squeezing her hand gently. Whatever you decide, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Jenna sat by the window with a notebook in her lap. She opened to a fresh page and wrote, What I want, peace for Lily, a life I can be proud of, to love and be loved without fear, to laugh freely again, to keep moving forward. She smiled softly. The words felt like promises she was finally ready to keep. Over the next weeks, Jenna and Mason grew closer, not with grand declarations, but with quiet moments and steady support. They cooked dinners together, explored new neighborhoods, and sometimes just sat in comfortable silence, sharing space without needing words. Jenna began to open up more, sharing stories about Ethan, not just the pain but the love that had once filled her life. Mason listened without judgment, never rushing, always present. One afternoon, Jenna received an unexpected call from her sister. "Mom wants to visit," she said warmly. "She's missed you both." Jenna hesitated but agreed. The day her mother arrived, Jenna felt a nervous flutter. She hadn't seen her mother in years. Dinner was filled with laughter and stories, the walls echoing with the sound of family reconnecting. Jenna watched Mason effortlessly fitting into the rhythm, joking with her mother and making Lily giggle. For the first time in a long time, Jenna felt hopeful. Later, as Jenna and Mason walked Lily to bed, Mason paused. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "Thanks to you," Jenna replied. He smiled, brushing a hand through her hair. "We're just getting started." That night, Jenna lay awake, the city lights twinkling outside her window. She thought about the past 5 years, the pain, the loss, the unanswered questions. And about the future. Uncertain, yes, but bright. She reached for her phone and sent a text, not to Ethan but to Mason. "Thank you for everything." A moment later his reply came. "Always." Jenna smiled and set the phone down. Tomorrow was a new day. The morning sunlight spilled through the curtains of Jenna's bedroom, casting warm streaks across the soft folds of the blanket she and Mason shared. The steady rhythm of Mason's breathing was a quiet lullaby that anchored her to the present, a far cry from the restless nights she had known for so long. Slowly, she stirred awake, her fingers instinctively reaching for his arm, tracing the familiar warmth beneath her touch. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips, gentle and genuine, free of the shadows that had clung to her for years. It was a smile that spoke of hope and healing, of a life slowly weaving itself back together after the storm. From downstairs came the familiar sound of Lily's laughter, light, carefree, and so full of life. Jenna's heart swelled at the sound, the purest reminder of why she fought so hard to keep moving forward. Breakfast was a chaotic symphony of spilled juice, sticky syrup, and the constant chatter of a 7-year-old whose energy seemed endless. Pancakes were flipped unevenly but with love, topped with generous globs of whipped cream that threatened to topple with every bite. Lily giggled, delighting in the mess she was creating, while Jenna and Mason exchanged amused glances across the cluttered kitchen table. "You sure she doesn't have an army of invisible friends helping her devour those pancakes?" Mason joked, offering Jenna a playful wink. "Definitely," Jenna replied, her smile bright. "And I'm pretty sure they're winning." The kind of imperfect, messy mornings like this were what Jenna wanted to hold on to. The normalcy, the laughter, the love woven into everyday moments. Later, the three of them found themselves in the park, beneath the towering branches of an ancient oak tree. The spring air was crisp but not cold, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. Lily dashed ahead, her small feet pounding on the path as she chased a butterfly, her laughter ringing through the open space like a song Jenna could never tire of hearing. Jenna and Mason walked hand in hand, their fingers interlaced with quiet confidence. She squeezed his hand, the simple act grounding her. "I don't think I ever properly said thank you," Jenna said softly. "For sticking around, for being patient, for believing in me even when I wasn't sure I deserved it." Mason stopped and turned toward her, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "There was never a question," he said earnestly. "You don't have to thank me for being here." Jenna's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Sometimes it's hard to believe I'm worthy of this. Of you." He smiled gently. "You are. Always have been." They stood there for a moment, bathed in dappled sunlight, the world quiet except for the soft rustling of leaves and Lily's distant giggles. Weeks melted into months. Jenna's life began to shift, reshaping itself into something more whole. The pieces didn't snap perfectly back together, but they fit well enough to build a new picture, one stitched with newfound joy and possibility. She and Mason planned small adventures, the kind they'd never dared to dream of before. Weekend hikes through sun-dappled trails, spontaneous road trips to unfamiliar towns, lazy afternoons by the lake watching the clouds drift by. The weight of grief, while never fully lifting, softened at the edges, allowing laughter to bloom where it hadn't for years. Lily thrived too, her eyes shining brighter, her smile more radiant. She learned to ride her bike without training wheels, sang songs at school performances, and asked the kind of endless questions that only children ask, a reminder of life's relentless, beautiful forward motion. One evening, Jenna received a phone call that brought a flurry of nervous excitement and a twinge of apprehension. "Mom wants to visit," her sister said warmly. "She's missed you both." Jenna hesitated, a swirl of memories flooding her mind. It had been years since she'd seen her mother, not since the days when grief and anger had carved walls between them. But now the thought of reunion felt less daunting. She agreed. The day her mother arrived was filled with a mixture of tension and warmth. Jenna busied herself preparing the guest room, smoothing wrinkles out of the sheets and setting fresh flowers on the bedside table. When her mother stepped through the door, years of distance melted in an instant under the weight of unspoken love. Dinner was a lively affair, filled with the sounds of laughter, shared stories, and the easy rhythm of family reconnecting. Jenna watched Mason slip seamlessly into the fold, teasing her mother and making Lily giggle with silly jokes. For the first time in what felt like forever, Jenna allowed herself to breathe fully, to feel hope not as a fragile whisper but as a steady pulse. Later, as Jenna and Mason walked Lily upstairs for bedtime, Mason paused at the doorway. "You've come a long way," he said softly, his voice full of quiet pride. Jenna smiled, tired but genuine. "Thanks to you." He leaned in, brushing his fingers through her hair with tenderness. "We're just getting started," he whispered. That night, Jenna lay awake, staring out the window as city lights twinkled like distant stars. The past 5 years, the pain, the loss, the unanswered questions, felt like echoes fading into the background. Ahead was a future unknown but full of promise. She reached for her phone and sent a text, not to Ethan but to Mason. "Thank you for everything." Almost instantly, his reply appeared. "Always." Jenna set the phone down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow was a new day. The following weeks brought quiet but profound changes. Jenna found herself less haunted by the past and more present in each moment. Work was still demanding, but she greeted each flight with renewed energy. Life was no longer a burden she carried alone. Mason remained her steadfast companion, patient and kind, never rushing her but always ready to support her. Together, they faced the everyday joys and challenges of motherhood, love, and healing. One crisp autumn afternoon, Jenna and Mason took Lily to a nearby pumpkin patch. The sun cast long golden shadows across the rows of orange gourds, and the air smelled of earth and spice. Lily ran ahead, squealing with delight as she chose the perfect pumpkin, her small hands clutching it tightly. Jenna watched, her heart full. "Mason," she said quietly, taking his hand, "I think I'm ready." He looked at her, eyes steady and warm. "For what?" "To stop running from the past. To fully embrace what we have now." He smiled, pulling her close. "Then let's face tomorrow together." Months later, Jenna received a letter. No return address, just her name carefully written on the envelope. She paused before opening it, fingers trembling. Inside was a simple note. "I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. Ethan." Jenna folded the letter slowly, placing it in a box filled with other memories. A smile spread across her face, not of sadness but of release. The weight of the past finally lifted. That night, as Mason held her close and Lily slept peacefully upstairs, Jenna whispered, "I love you." Mason smiled, brushing a kiss across her forehead. "I love you too." For the first time in years, Jenna felt whole. Life was far from perfect. There would still be storms and challenges. But Jenna no longer feared them. With Mason by her side, and Lily's hand in hers, she was ready. The future was hers to shape. And as the stars blinked awake overhead, Jenna closed her eyes, welcoming the promise of new beginnings. Because sometimes, second chances aren't just about reclaiming what was lost, they're about building something better. The days grew shorter as fall deepened into early winter, casting a crispness in the air that Jenna found oddly invigorating. She watched the leaves change hues from the window of her cozy apartment, a steaming mug of coffee warming her hands. Mason was already downstairs making breakfast, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon pancakes drifting up like a promise of comfort. Jenna felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, a calm after the storm, fragile but real. After breakfast, the three of them bundled up and headed out to a nearby ice skating rink. It was Lily's first time on skates, and her laughter filled the crisp air as Mason steadied her wobbling steps. Jenna watched from the sidelines, heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and hope. This was the life she had fought to rebuild, a life filled with small, joyful moments that stitched together into something beautiful. Mason caught her gaze and smiled. "You look happy." "I am," Jenna admitted. "More than I thought I could be." That evening, as snowflakes began to drift gently outside, Jenna curled up with Mason on the couch, Lily asleep peacefully in her room. They talked quietly about the future, dreams and plans that once felt impossible now within reach. Jenna shared her hopes of continuing her career while creating a home filled with love and laughter. Mason promised to be by her side every step of the way. Work continued to challenge Jenna, but she approached it with renewed energy. Each flight was a reminder of how far she'd come, how much she'd survived. She found joy in the routine and in the kindness of strangers, grateful for the simple things that made life meaningful. One afternoon, Jenna received a call from a publisher who had read some of her writing, a collection of reflections she'd quietly submitted months ago. They wanted to publish her work. It was an unexpected but thrilling opportunity, a new chapter unfolding. At dinner that night, Jenna shared the news with Mason and Lily, their faces lighting up with excitement and pride. "This is just the beginning," Mason said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Jenna toasted, feeling the weight of the past finally lifting. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of creativity and discovery. Jenna balanced motherhood, work, and her newfound passion for writing, all supported by Mason's unwavering presence. She wrote not only to heal but to inspire, to tell a story of resilience, love, and the power of second chances. As winter deepened, Jenna found herself reflecting on the journey she'd traveled, from loss and heartbreak to hope and healing. She knew challenges still lay ahead, but with Mason and Lily beside her, she was ready. The future was a foundation she was building, strong, steady, and filled with promise. One quiet night, Jenna looked out at the snow-covered city, feeling a profound gratitude. She whispered softly, "Thank you for the past, the lessons, and the chance to start anew." And with that, she turned away from the window, embracing the warmth of the home she was creating. Winter's first snow had settled in quietly overnight, blanketing the city in a soft, pristine white. Jenna stood at her apartment window, watching the world outside transform into a shimmering wonderland. The trees wore delicate frost like jewels, and the streets glistened under the pale morning light. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply breathe it all in, the stillness, the beauty, the promise of new beginnings. Downstairs, the aroma of fresh coffee and warm cinnamon rolls wafted up the stairs. Mason was already in the kitchen, humming a tune as he prepared breakfast, the simple sounds filling the apartment with warmth and life. Jenna smiled to herself, slipping into a cozy sweater and wrapping a scarf around her neck. Today, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: contentment. After breakfast, the three of them bundled up and stepped outside into the crisp winter air. Lily pulled her tiny mittened hands out of Jenna's and darted toward the nearby park, where children were building snowmen and sledding down gentle hills. Mason followed closely behind, his laughter mixing with Lily's as they raced across the snowy expanse. Jenna paused, watching them, her heart full. Later that day, Jenna sat in her favorite coffee shop, notebook open in front of her. The glow of the café's soft lighting mingled with the muted bustle of fellow patrons. Her pen moved steadily across the pages, weaving together stories of resilience and hope, a testament to the journey she had endured. Writing had become more than a passion. It was a lifeline, a way to connect with others who might find strength in her words. That evening, Mason and Jenna sat by the fire, wrapped in a blanket and sharing stories of childhood dreams and future plans. Lily was curled up between them, fast asleep with a book resting on her chest. Mason looked at Jenna with steady affection. "You've come so far," he said softly. "And yet you keep growing." Jenna reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "It's because of you," she whispered. "Because I finally believe in tomorrow." The weeks turned to months, and Jenna's book began to take shape. With Mason's encouragement, she submitted a manuscript to a local publisher, who responded with enthusiasm and support. Every milestone, from editing drafts to attending meetings, felt like a step toward reclaiming her voice and her future. One quiet afternoon, Jenna received a letter in the mail. It was from Ethan. Her breath caught as she unfolded the note, bracing herself for old wounds to reopen. But this letter was different. He wrote simply, sincerely, apologizing once more for the pain he had caused and expressing hope that she had found happiness. Jenna folded the letter carefully, placing it alongside the others she had saved but never reread. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. The past was no longer a weight but a chapter, closed but never forgotten. That night, Jenna stood on her balcony, gazing at the stars blanketing the winter sky. Mason joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm grateful for every moment with you," he said quietly. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Me too," she replied. "Here's to the promise of today. And all the days to come." As snowflakes drifted softly around them, Jenna felt the warmth of home and love settle deep inside. For the first time in a very long time, she was truly whole.